forums that we used to do were about 3 hours, weren't they, Ken?
Yeah, they did go on a little bit.
A real taster of our work, but this is going to focus first on the elephant in the room, I suppose. So Ken, I'm going to let you introduce yourself first.
Sure. Well, thanks, Rachel. I've been working in businesses pretty much all my working life, and on sustainability and what we now call the circular economy for almost 40 years, certainly over 34, 5, 6 years, before it even had the name. So yeah, I've been involved in this in different ways, shapes, and forms over quite a long period of time. I was one of the first people ever to put the word sustainable in my business title. You can see there I was Director of Sustainable Product Innovation Worldwide for a major multinational consumer products company. And having, worked on these issues for quite a while, I found the need to get some outside perspective. And as a result of getting that outside perspective, I actually ended up joining the people who were giving me the outside perspective. And so I became a consultant in this area. And as you know, Rachel, I've been doing this independently also now for the last 7 or 8 years.
Absolutely. And Ken, I always say, is an all-round master and legend in this space, right?
You're too kind.
He worked with the original Cradle to Cradle, which was before circularity was even a word. And those of you who don't know me, I know one of you does really well. I'm Rachel Sheila Can. My background and experience is being a designer and design manager in the commercial fashion industry. I actually worked with one of the participants today in one of my very first jobs. Someone else is coming in. And very much I always work very hands-on with the supply chain, working directly with the fabrics, knowing what the fabrics and fibers actually were, and so on and so forth. I moved into project management and into helping businesses develop brands from scratch right through to fruition. And about 10 years ago, whoops, someone new here is not muted. About 10 years ago, I really moved into sustainability overall. And yeah, built up our consultancy, Circular Earth. I lecture on sustainability ethics in business. We also created the Ecosystem Incubator, which is a collaborative, and founded a lot of the kind of new economic practices that we're creating and co-creating inside of Real Circularity as well. So I'm also a regenerative practitioner. So that's not just in the fabrication and the idea of a product, but also in the way that a business is run and managed. So I can discuss those parts later on. So here today, we're here to discuss the elephant in the room, which is a big thing in terms of circularity, because we have to both reduce overproduction and stay in business at the same time. And that's where I'm going to move to Ken to ask, how do we stay in business while reinventing our business? I know you've been doing this for a long time, Ken.
Yeah, well, I think first of all, it depends where you are in your business cycle, let's say. If you're a brand new business and you've got a tabula rasa and you've got, a complete white page and you're starting from scratch, you can begin to take some of these ideas and concepts that we're talking about, and you can implement them immediately into your new design of your business, your brand, or your product. But for most companies, they're already in business and they're in the linear economy. And so they have this challenge, and it is a big challenge. It's how do you stay in business and keep the cash flow going and selling whatever it is you're selling, and at the same time completely transform your business. And this is a challenge, because we're not talking about trivial changes. We're talking about changing the entire business model upon which your business operates. And so there has to be an element of, it's either you're all in and you almost stop and start again, which is almost impossible to do, because obviously if you stop the linear, you've no cash flow and you're out of business. So that doesn't really work. So you've got to have some sort of incremental change by which you progressively change what you're doing until you've gone across the board and you've completely reinvented your business. Now, that then begs the question of how long is that going to take? What's the pace? How much can you invest? There's a lot of things behind the scenes that go into what pace you can make that transformation over. But this is the challenge if you're already in business. How do you fundamentally change the things you're doing, move into different business systems, and not lose your cash flow, and not lose your clients and customers? It's got to be done in a sequence way, and it's got to be done in a very nuanced way, so that you're being risk averse, right? You don't want to just shock the system to such an extent that you don't have a business anymore.
100%. And we're very much fans of this kind of agile approach, right? To go into maybe one product or one aspect, look at transforming that, but transforming that so that you actually get more revenue to invest in the next iteration, and so on and so forth. So being like super pragmatic in terms of how you actually start to use circularity to reinvent that in that agile process, right?
Right. The economic E never goes away, right? You're in business, so you're in business to make a profit. And so that's always a consideration. It never disappears.
100%.
But I think there are some myths around that economic E, Rachel, and that's that sustainability, circularity always costs more.
Mm.
And I think that's like anything else. Well, let's imagine the first time the iPhone came out. It probably cost a lot more than whatever phone you had before that. But there are scale effects. There are, there are ways in which you can trade off one thing for another, right? And
Yeah.
this is where this is where the creativity and the innovation comes in. As you're doing that reinvention, you have to look at all of the elements and say, okay, if this new piece of the puzzle costs me a little bit more because I'm now committed to sustainability and circularity, then where can I make up for that and do something else in a different way that costs me less, so that I'm cost neutral, or maybe slightly even cheaper. I've had many projects where we've ended up with a 10, 15, even 20% cost savings through applying this work. So it doesn't automatically follow that all of this costs more.
100%. And I've been working with this for a while in the micro way as well, like to look at different ways of approaching it with micro businesses, for instance, and the coming together of businesses to co-create these kind of economic advantages as well. So if you are a small business, there are ways to start to collaborate on this. So I'm a huge fan of collaboration, as you probably all looked at in one of my profiles. So we're also massive fans of a decentralized systems approach, where we look at co-creating and creating relocalized economies, where we might look at, say, creating inside countries that are not necessarily the West, right? And creating both fruition, making, wearing, using, and going back into circular systems. Like India has a massive opportunity to become the first circular country because it has everything in one place. We want to look at creating new value, and this is not just value from that first thing that you create, but a continuous value, something that you can create economics over time with the same product, right? And that's not massively heard of in our linear economy, right? Like, it's usually get it, make it, use it, waste it, and that's why we have too much overall. So thinking about how we can seek new value throughout the system.
And some of that, Rachel, can be a new way in which you connect with and communicate with your end customer, right? How do you take that moment that you just referenced when you come to the end of the use of your product, and how do you use that moment as an opportunity to talk to them again, even before they get to that moment? And if you put the right systems in place, how do you get them to refurbish or repair or get a new product from you rather than just competing in the marketplace. And if you're in the business of selling, tennis shoes, then stop them from going from your company to Nike or New Balance or Adidas or whoever else, right? By having a different relationship with your customer, you enable a communication that says, hey, I want to keep buying from this company because they're in tune with my values. Their value set and my value set are very much aligned. And I don't want to brand switch. And so communications, I think, is another very, very underutilized asset in this new economy.
Yeah, absolutely. And your customers can actually become like almost like a club, that they're a part of, and they're a part of this journey. We've done quite a bit of work on how to keep that customer engaged in your work, right? And that touch base in terms of next value, new value, is going to be a place where you can not only create economics, or you can create different revenue streams, but that you can create that relatability, that response in the customer that has them be a part of your raving fans, as we like to call it, right? Love it.
Absolutely.
And then the other thing is to identify new and different revenue streams that are not necessarily about that product in the first instance. That might be stuff like AI, but it also might be edutainment or education streams that you can bring in as a part of your business, right? So thinking about applying different new revenue streams to your business. And obviously all of this is bespoke per business. If you are a large business, it's going to be very different than if you are a small business. But I don't see that there's any issue of either a micro business, a medium-sized business, or a large corporation getting involved in the new ways of approaching economics in their business.
Well, for me, Rachel, the reason that's true is that we're dealing at the level of principles, things that don't change, fundamentals, approaches that apply at whatever scale you're talking about. So as you say, whether it's a single entrepreneur or whether it's a multi-billion-dollar corporation, the fundamentals don't change. How those fundamentals operate within that individual business are very different, even within the same business area. For example, I've worked with companies in the office furniture industry, one of which is much more highly vertically integrated than the other.
Mm.
And so the principles don't change when we're talking about circularity and sustainability, but how we go about implementing them in each business is very different because they're organized differently. And so that's why everything in a way does become a bespoke engagement, because you have to deal with whoever it is you're dealing with, and they're not identical businesses.
100%. So then we go to the agile approach in terms of the transition, like we spoke about earlier on. Operating your business while you're reinventing your business very much has to be an agile approach. If you are a small micro business starting up in the scene, you might be able to be far more agile in the first instance. But if you have a large business already, you are going to have to approach this in different ways and then create that revenue as you are agilely changing everything in your company over time, right? Another thing I'm a big fan of and that we are doing right now at the moment is bottom-up creation. So instead of having to have a brand or wait for factories or anyone inside the ecosystem of the companies that you're working with, they could become actual brands themselves, right? Could actually we work on bottom-up creation, or at least a partnership, and working together in these aspects? I've also found that for transparency, that is a really interesting thing as well. That if you are looking at it in the bottom up, you're not trying to validate down a full, massive, huge supply chain. You're starting from the seed, the source, and you're going upwards and therefore you have much more of a transparency in the system. And then AI and crypto, I think, will be one of the things that will be coming to fruition in the future. However, in its infancy at the moment, I have been speaking to a few companies who are looking at streamlining the way that we actually buy things. So instead of being a, okay, this is what we sold last year, and these are the trends or whatever, and we'll sort of make an educated guess when we're buying something. Actually, you can set AI to start working for you to only buy what you actually need, therefore reducing overproduction, reducing risk, and potentially increasing your depth throughout. So really interesting to see where that goes. And if anyone's interested, come to see us and we can introduce you to those different partners. Over the next 5 or 6 months, we will be introducing our different trends, and obviously new economics is one of them. And this is our trend radar. And maybe just quickly, Ken, you can kind of go into where trend radar was from for a few minutes.
Yeah, well, I came up with this idea more than a dozen years ago, because all of the different topics that we could put on this trend radar relating to sustainability and circularity are in motion. They're moving, they're not static. So when we look at an image like this is like we've just had the sweep of the radar arm and we're tracking the planes where they are at this very second. But, you know, a minute from now, they'll have moved somewhere else. And some of these trends move faster than others. And so in terms of being agile, like you were saying, with our approaches, you have to have a sense of what's really close in to you, what's affecting your business right now, what's just happened legislatively in the EU or wherever you're operating, that's changing how you need to react. And those are the things that are close into the center, that they're right on top of you. And some things like locality might be further out and might be fairly slow moving. Whereas toxins, for example, it only takes one issue to pop in the news about something related to toxicity and the product. And wow, you know, that's a crisis. And so that can move to the center very, very quickly. So the idea behind this is it's a way of looking at the multitude of different things that we have to pay attention to, but also having a way of streamlining them and segregating them so that we're not overwhelmed by them, right? The radar operator isn't so concerned about the plane that's 500 miles away. It's concerned about the one that's 1 mile away. And so we can just use this radar analogy as a way to track over time how things are changing.
Yeah, 100%. And this is going to be different in the different countries that you're in the different businesses, large and small, that you're in, where you're selling to, etc., etc. So these, we would work with businesses and our academy members bespoke generally to their area, right? So these are our 5 top trends that we see coming through as a major forward-thinking thing. And of course, EPR is one of the hugest things at the moment. You know, if anyone's in the EU and UK, they will be looking at this with a good lens at the moment. So this is what we do. I mean, we work with all manner and sizes of people, right? So we have our entry-level book that we co-authored called Real Circularity, which you can pick up for the price of £15. This gives you a good overview of what we're doing. It's really quick, so you can read this in 2 or 3 hours and really get a good gist of what we are up to. We operate our academy and its alumni, so that's just not a course that you do once and that's it, see you later. The alumni is a 12-month access to us directly working with you once a month in our group sessions. So that would be helping you then implement it into your consultancy, into your micro business. The Academy alumni are only open to micro businesses, consultants, freelancers, designers, and really seed startup businesses, because it wouldn't be suitable for a larger corporation. That would have to be a bespoke application. But you would get the alumni, the Academy. At the moment, you'd actually also be able to get our summit recordings as well, which our summit is going to be in June 21st. And we're going to be interviewing some really interesting people that Ken and I have known on our journey, right? Looking forward to that. So
yeah, and I think the other thing, Rachel, about the alumni group is it's a growing community of practitioners, right? And so there's an incredible networking value. And, you know, these monthly events that we have where we get people back together again, if they have the chance, and, you know, to pop in and chat again. The connections and the reconnections, you know, are amazing, what we're seeing, and people helping people. Oh, I had something like that. And, you know, it's, I don't know, it's just a great community that's growing week by week.
Yeah, and it's absolutely starting off conversations. If you even started off us looking at creating white papers into particular things, like natural dyes, and potential reuse toxicity in terms of when someone is upcycling something, for instance. So it's only creating a rich community and collective intelligence as we're going along, which is really exciting to see. And we love doing it, don't we, Ken?
We do, and it's particularly gratifying when we get some of the comments we get, right? People who've literally just started the course right at the beginning, and they're just finding that their views on sustainability and circularity are being reframed. This, for me, is the first thing. We have to get everybody onto the same wavelength. You know, I talk about this sometimes, like if I said to you after this talk we're having today, let's go play football, right? Yeah. If you're in the UK or EU or maybe Brazil, you know, you're going to come with a round ball. I'm in the US and I'd probably show up with an oval ball to play American football. So we can use the same language, we can use the same words, and we're completely miscommunicating. And this is really very, very true when it comes to sustainability and circularity. We can use these words and think we're communicating to each other, but we're way off beam in what we're talking about. You're not receiving the same message that I'm giving. And so this reframing of what sustainability and circularity are is super important. And Rachel, I couldn't miss the opportunity to quote our most famous quote guy of Buckminster Fuller, right? We love our Bucky Fuller quotes. And the one that always sticks in my mind is, he says, we are called to be architects of the future, not its victims. Can the processes of education and self-help be turned to man's greatest advancement? The answer is yes, if you're willing to unlearn. Yes. If you're willing to put into doubt the information that you've been fed to this point and start from the beginning. And so that's what we do in our academy. We start from the beginning to get everybody onto the right wavelength. Because just as you talked about AI, Rachel,
yes,
you know, if you were to go to ChatGPT or Bard and start putting in what is sustainability and what is circularity, you're going to get a whole load of BS because it just scraped the internet and found something. You're not going to get something that's cohesive and coherent and of today, which is what we offer in the academy.
Exactly that. And that really goes into then the coaching and consulting. Where we can start in consulting and coaching is to hold an academy for those teams so that your full teams can be on board and singing from the same hymn sheet, speaking the same language in terms of being circularity literate. There might be an imbalance in terms of what some parts of the teams understand or have gone into depth in terms of product development, etc., as opposed to, say, a design team or a production area, or, you know, even the marketing. Everyone has to be working from the same place. So we do offer a bespoke academy, which would be virtual and accessible over time. Or also completely bespoke consulting where we come in and do a done for you, done with you approach. And that, of course, starts from £10,000 plus, because that's our time. And as a part of our alumni, some of our alumni who have been through our academy then can start to work with us in our practice also, right? Because they've all got really rich experience, like myself, in their practice. So we are also doing that in terms of collaborations and associates going forward. We also love speaking, as you can tell. So that is obviously because Ken is available in the US, I'm available in the UK, and at a push, I'll get on a Eurostar and do some speaking workshops. I absolutely love doing workshops. We have some really fun stuff that we actually apply into businesses and education spaces to have people shift their mindsets, right? So we can also offer the books as a part of that, so that everyone's got a book in hand inside of a company. So have a look at us on realcircularity.com.